Hi, this is Jim, and this is Second Chance, a moped podcast.
And welcome everybody to another week of Second Chance Moped Podcast. I am happy because I got to ride a moped today in 80-degree weather in Minnesota in October. That makes me happy. I was just talking to neighbor Pat before him and his kids went through axes. It was great. We're both talking like how we normally get snow. Yes, Minnesota people, all we fucking do, talk about the goddamn weather. Like I remember sitting outside my ICU unit and watching it snow. Like just like, well, being grateful to A, be alive, B, like, at least I don't have to fucking deal with the snow. And then 2 days later, they wheeled me out to the nursing home. That was great. But yeah, mopeds are fucking making me happy again. Like, I realized how much of a pessimist I really had been the last I don't know, for a while. Like my old job really drug me down, and I am so happier. We'll just say that. Like I may not want to move on to Minnesota for a while now. Um, but yeah, just got out, rode my bike, got to help Gail, mommy, this weekend, made her happy. I kind of bummed out because I had some relationship stuff happen that kind of bummed me out, but whatever, mopeds make me happier. I'm gonna go down everybody who hasn't heard this, and hopefully you hear it in time. Lawrence, Kansas, the coal trailers are having a ride this coming weekend, and it's in Lawrence, Kansas. It's fun and great group of guys out there, like Angry, Jeremiah, like in the Muff Peddlers, I think will be out there. I don't know. Like it's just kind of something I just started going to like 3 years ago. And it's kind of the last big thing I do for the year. And I figured they have a kind of a joke they play on everybody every year. Like, and I figured it out right the fuck away. What they do is like, it's a pumpkin patch ride, they call it. Like, you go and get a pumpkin, and then you ride back to some bar, and whoever has the biggest pumpkin wins. But it's a joke because if you ever try to fucking hold a massive pumpkin while riding a moped for miles, it's not comfortable, and it's funny to watch, at least. But yeah, I asked a person on this week who is just fucking rad. Like her and I hit it off. I won their raffle bike about a couple months ago. Went and just there. I talked to her husband Andy, and I just said, "What about this weekend?" It's like, "Well, we're doing this meetup. Come on out." So I got to the Zero shop with like by the skin of my teeth, like within 10 minutes of their leave. And anybody knows Andy, like he's a punctual guy. He wants to get stuff going on time, which is awesome. It makes me happy. But not when you're traveling cross country and just barely make it to their shop, and anxiety is at like a 10. But Sarah and I, we got to sit and chit chat here and there and whatnot, like just a person. Like I'm a fan of Sarah. And I like her and I like bad communication through Facebook. Like she'll get to me, I won't get to her. I won't get to her. She'll get to me. It's like days and weeks and months or whatever. Before and finally I'm just like, here's my number. Fucking we gotta get this done before I forget. Blah blah blah. But yeah, I'm just gonna have her introduce herself right now.
Hey, it's Sarah. Some of you might know me as Shet. Some of you might know me as Scoutin'. But here in Toledo, one of the zeros.
Right on. All right, Sarah, here on Second Chance Moped Podcast, we go through people's moped journeys, i.e. the very first time they saw a moped to the smile ride to like kind of middle part of the journey, what's like today. So, Sarah, let me ask you, what's the very first memory of a moped? Not necessarily getting on, but like the first time you can conceptually know I saw a moped.
In my hometown, we have like those weird little like mini bike things. So
what's your hometown?
It's Elginak, Michigan.
Okay.
Go an hour north of Detroit on the river.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's there. It's up
It's
there.
the middle of nowhere, like redneck little town. And you get like all the little like mini bikes and four-wheelers and stuff. So I never actually saw a moped, but like I saw similar-esque things. And then shortly after starting working at Chrysler was in 2011, so a decade ago. One of my coworkers like, hey, you like adventure things. You want to go down to Detroit with me? I was like, wait, excuse me, what?
Going to Detroit is an adventure, you know?
Yeah, and he's just like, yeah, I just started this moped club. We're called Motor City Riot. Yeah, just go down to Detroit. I'll meet you at this place. And he gave me the address, and I'm rolling through in the middle of the night.
That is very what life wise choices at this point, you know.
Yeah, and like, you know, I'm early 20s. I'm like,
yeah,
it's fine. Not exactly the best of areas. When like I first started to go to Detroit, I'm just like, yeah, I will stick to this one little spot, nowhere else, because like I'm tiny, stupid girl. And I roll up, there's this big empty covered parking lot where they do like farmers markets and stuff. And then there's this building with like a side door. It's all graffitied and there's all these cars outside. And like, I guess this is the address. And I rolled in, and it was actually the old Omnicorp that they had set up in Detroit. MCR actually started and would ride their bikes and host like Moped Mondays and all that stuff from Omnicorp.
Oh, wow.
And that was right before they bought the shop, like, I don't know, a few months later or something. So we would meet up in like this dark area of Detroit. There's no buildings around us.
Isn't all areas kind of dark in Detroit? So like,
well, maybe not. Like, I've never been to Detroit except for, I think I went to the casino for one of the car show things over at Kobo. That was my extent of Detroit. So like, I'm just looking around. He's like, oh, hop on the back of my bike. Cause at that time I've never really rode anything. I'm like, okay, I can ride on the back of a bike. That's fine. True. And we just rode all over Detroit. Like, I've never really seen anything. And it's, I don't know, maybe 10 o'clock at night. And we start this ride through Detroit, and it's just all these lights everywhere. And there's all these little noisy things just like going all around us. And just like, what the hell is going on?
No helmets, probably.
Oh no. MCR is actually pretty big on helmets.
That's fucking rad.
There's maybe a few people I've ever seen show up without helmets, and they used to have a stash of spare helmets there too. But yeah, I mean, even at Omnicorp, they had a smaller group. I mean, they just started, they just formed, and it slowly grew a little bit more and a little bit more. So it was just amazing to see these things, not quite motorcycles. Like, we had some dirt bikes. I'm like, I want to ride one of these things, but I'm also petrified. But yeah, that was like my first seeing of mopeds. And yeah.
Okay, you kind of got on, you obviously liked, or like, what was your first, like, was it just because you were with a friend, or like you're just like, okay, I'm gonna try this thing? I don't know, because like, did you obviously, I don't know if, I'm assuming, were you like, I know you, like, a little bit of your background, what you do, you said you work for Chrysler, like, but did you have a mechanical background growing up? Like, did you like to tinker and work on stuff? Like, kind of bring us to that part of your life.
So, I mean, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. There's really not much to do. My brother did a lot of bicycle riding. I tried some, but usually we ended up stealing parts from my bikes from my brother's bike and monstering this thing together so his bikes would work. But I mean, we don't take our cars to mechanics. I'm not as good as my family, but I mean, my dad and his sisters used to race their cars at the racetracks and everything. My aunt has a 5-car garage with hoists and like any tool you want. So like, if anything breaks, you have to rig it up to get it home. Dad's not coming to save you. You're pushing a full-size Bronco to the gas station, or, you know, rigging up whatever you can, and you're limping it home.
Yeah.
And you're out there helping them fix some stuff. A lot of the times my dad didn't want me to hurt myself, so like he would do most of the stuff and I would watch and help. But I mean, I
so you
changed the
definitely came from
brakes.
like a blue collar
Yeah.
kind of wrenching background.
Yeah, not massive, but like enough that I could do and get around.
You know enough to be dangerous, like myself, is what you're saying, probably.
Yes. Yeah.
Right on. So, like, what you said you went around Detroit at night, riding dubs with somebody, which is like awesome for you because I still fucking hate the idea of riding dubs. Like, I hate it. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's an anxiety thing for me. Like, I hate doing it with
Oh
somebody, and
no.
I hate somebody on the back. Yeah. Ooh.
I feel you. I mean, I had a couple boyfriends that had motorcycles and like I rode on the back, and ever like when I first started riding mopeds, I just rode dubs on the back of the guy's bike.
Mhm.
And for me, now that I have my motorcycle license, and even on larger mopeds, I do not let people on the back. Like I can't handle that feeling. Even trying to ride the tandem bicycle, Meg and Jared got a tandem bicycle. And we were just riding it all around just because it was hilarious. And
Yeah.
with me on the back, everything was fine. But the moment Andy got on the back, it was like he was trying to control where we went. And I kept yelling, I'm like, stop it. And we like ran into cars. It was great. So like no one's on the back of my bikes.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I can only imagine. And it's like, I'm sorry. So you dug it seemed like, at least. That was it, the culture, or was it the actual loud little machines?
It was kind of everything. I mean, I don't know if you went to Omnicorp. I don't even know if Omnicorp is still there in Detroit, but it was like a hacker space.
Okay.
So when you went in, the main floor had like all these huge shop machines. Like you had the lathes, you had like an old CNC machine. I don't even know if that thing worked. You had all these workbenches, and people had their bikes going like every which way. And then you went upstairs and they had like 3D printers, like this back in 2011. So like this wasn't a common household thing like today.
No, like
yeah. And like all these like little hacker making things every which way where you can make literally anything you wanted. And I walked in, I'm like, this is heaven. And then the
especially
people
with somebody
were just
like
great.
you. Yeah. And
yeah, the people were awesome. They were so welcoming. MCR is one of the greatest people, like groups of people. They always want to include people in anything that they're doing.
Mhm.
Huge on food. You can trap me in anything just by being like, hey, here's a hot dog. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But no, they're always just so helpful with trying to get people in and doing whatever. So like riding with them were great. And like you had those few people, like they don't leave Detroit. They live in Detroit. They ride their bicycles if they're not riding their mopeds. They know every single back street. And those were the guys leading the rides in the middle of the night, which thank God, because I know routes through Detroit now, but during the day, I don't recall I'm going down the streets because I only know how they look at night. I'm like, oh, that light over there, we got to turn and like avoid this pothole.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it took a while actually for me to ride a bike because I didn't have one myself and I was nervous about like maybe damaging someone else's property.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I ever rode, I believe it was a guns event, like one of their last ones in Ann Arbor.
Okay.
They're like, oh yeah, come to the warehouse. And like I met up, the guy had his little dirt bike thing so that I could ride on the back. And I was like, okay, no problem. And then one of the old MCR guys, he had one more moped in his truck. And he just looks at me and he's like, Sarah, you want to ride? I'm like, oh, I am. And he goes, no, but like, I got a spare bike. I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And he like showed me how to start it. And he's like, just try to lean a little, just like go up and down the road a couple of times and then we'll leave. Okay. I get to the end of the block, I go to turn around, and it dies. And I'm sitting, I'm like, okay, I don't know this bike. I did everything he kept telling me to do. He's like, flip this, kick this. I'm like, okay. They didn't tell me that there was a thing called a petcock.
I was gonna guess. I'm like, yeah, the fucker didn't turn the petcock on, did he?
Yeah. And like after 10 minutes, they send someone down and like, are you okay? I'm like, I don't know what's going on with this thing. Like, I don't know jack about actually how this thing works.
Yeah.
And we're looking it over. He's like, oh, the gas isn't on. I'm like, I didn't know you turned it off. Like, why would you? But okay.
Yeah.
And as soon as we turn around and go back, they're like, okay, we're going. I'm like, wait, I went like 20 feet on this thing.
And I need more practice routes.
It started getting dark. And I'm like, you know what? Just stay in the middle. You'll be fine. And I leaned.
Oh, Lord, that's usually where the freaking where the anarchy is happening, is in the middle. Like, I love to stay in the back or the front, like the fuck the middle, but whatever. Well, that's me.
I didn't know where we were going. I've never rode before. I'm like, don't stay in front. You're going to kill someone. I'm like, don't go in back because you're going to lose them. So I'm like, you're staying in the middle. And I knew nothing about leaning. I was turning with just like moving the handlebars. Like, it was horrible. I'm like, I'm going to die. And then I saw this shiny thing. I'm like, what's the shiny thing? And then I realized the shiny thing was coming at me.
Oh, shit.
It was someone's pipe that fell off, and it bounced in the road and got stuck in the moped between my leg and the bike.
Oh,
and I got a pipe burn from someone else's pipe that fell off. And like, we rounded the corner and there's the person like, I guess your pipe's back there. Cause like he was dead. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, just keep going. And we made it through. And everyone came up to me like, oh, you did good. I'm like, I am absolutely terrified. I'm like, how did I make
Sarah's
it through this?
like just numb from anxiety.
Like, stressed out the whole time. Like,
I had 17 strokes. This is my face now.
And then they're like, well, you're still going to ride with us yet, right? I'm like, yeah. So when can I get a moped?
What was that moped that you were riding that night though?
It was a top tank Targa.
Okay.
I believe black. It was Nick Meyer's bike.
You know what? I hate to admit this.
You love Tomo?
But no, I won't own no Tomos by any means. No, I'll own one at some time. But like Jake Kane brought up the fact a couple weeks ago to me. He goes, Tomos are the fastest stock bike. Or how do you say it? They're like the best stock bike. And I really got to thinking about it. Like, fuck, they are. Like, I mean, I'm a Honda guy through and through, but like, fuck, Tomos, like, because they're 35-40 right out the box.
Oh yeah. And then you put a pipe on it and it's like 5 more. You're fine.
Well, then it's 60 mile an hour. Everybody knows that. Like you throw that bi-turbo on, you're fucking blazing. But no, like they are fucking good bikes. Like I don't hate to admit it, Tomos are rad. Like I'm not a top tank guy, but like the Targas are cool. I mean, it's a toy motorcycle. So what do you? Yeah.
Like the top tanks, I like to like hold the tank with my knees and feel like I'm on my big bike. So you know.
Right on. So you wanted to get a moped right away. How did you go about that then?
Well, it took a while because I didn't know what I wanted. And like looking at everyone's bikes, they finally got a building, MCR did. And Rodney and Robert, those were my 2 go-tos for loaners. They would let me ride either Rodney had this beautiful like army green top tank Tomos. And that was like the main loaner. And then Robert had a Murray, and he even let me borrow that to go down to NOLA once. Wow. And I do not recommend riding on those cobble streets down there.
I'm so tempted to. Are you going to the Smog Squad mono thing?
When is it?
Halloween weekend.
Oh, no. We have like the next 3 weekends all booked with Zero's events.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I really wanted a bike. I didn't know what I wanted. And at the time, the guy I worked with, he had a top tank Tomos, and he was like teaching me how to actually ride down the back roads of Royal Oak. I totally ran the bike into the front of my car. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you forget that the throttle sticks on bikes and they die and you go to kick them over, they just go straight. But
Yeah, they do.
my very first moped was actually a Gorelli from
Okay.
Andy.
Imagine that.
His dad used it up at the cabin apparently for a while. And when I got into Detroit, I love my husband. He tuned it for the air leaks, but didn't tell anyone. So it was making these noises. And MCR is like, oh, it shouldn't be making those noises. So several people were helping me. Like we kept switching out all these things, and we just could not get this bike running. And I was like, I hate this bike. I hate it so much. And then I believe it was Samuel, Alex. He found Tom, my Tomos. I'm really good with names.
Yeah.
He
real stretch there on that creativity too. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, it says Tom on the side of his tank instead of Tomos. I painted that on there.
Okay.
But it came all black, completely stock. I never rebuilt the engine. Didn't change out anything really, except for we put a pipe on it. And then because I knew I was going to be riding it in Detroit and the potholes, and at the time we also had to look out for the manhole covers because people were stealing them and selling them to the scrap yards.
Yeah.
So like that eats your whole tire.
Yeah, that eats your whole bike. Yeah.
Yeah. So I put on the Magnum forks on the front with their shocks, and then I bought air shocks and put them on the back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Those things have handled people like over 300 pounds riding on my bike. If something goes wrong, we need a loaner, they go on top. And then here I was like at the time like 110 pounds. I'm like, I need air shocks. Like no I didn't, but still I love them. But yeah, I got that bike and it kind of made some noise. Pretty quiet, but the more I rode it, the more little bit noise I made. I was like, oh, it's fine. And then that had been like 2012 I got that bike. And shortly after I moved to Toledo,
okay,
it exploded.
Oh.
We were doing a ride. We were meeting with Dayton, actually. So we went down and they went up and we camped at this campsite. And we made it maybe an hour out. Not even, I think. And it was making these god-awful noises. It got worse and worse. I'm like, I don't think this bike's going to make it. And then it made this catastrophic noise. And I'm like, Andy, it's not moving. Our chase wasn't following us. They were just meeting us there. So like Tom is the love of my life moped. We had to just chain him to a telephone pole in the middle of nowhere, and try to hide his rainbow flag on the back. And then we picked him up the next morning, and like the relief of like going over the hill and just seeing the little rainbow flag floating, like, yeah, he's there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Andy tried assisting. Because like I work up in Dearborn now, so having the free time like he has isn't the greatest when I'm driving 2 to 3 hours a day. So he tried rebuilding that engine and keeping the kickstart because I love kickstarts.
Okay.
Everything in that whole bike was so warped. I think he went through like 3-4 different engines. He's like, honey, I can't save it for you. So now I have a normal pedal start on Tom.
Oh, That makes me happy. You talked about New Orleans. You talked about like going to Detroit and stuff like that. But like for you as a young person in the moped community, was it? And it's weird because like you guys are like right across the road from Ohio, but like when was the first time you like went a long distance for like another moped rally, like more than 4 or 5 hours?
Um, I mean,
Like getting away from
just in
Ohio.
Midwest area, there's just so many places.
I know
Like,
it's
yeah,
you guys are like in the center of it, like, and I get that. Like,
you can go anywhere in like a 4 hour radius and hit like 20 moped groups. It's great.
yeah,
I think,
because Michigan needs one more fucking moped group, chimp bastards.
right? I want to say NOLA was the first one that was a long trip.
Okay.
And there were 2 cars from Detroit that went down. I think one from Ipsy or something. I was in the truck with Andrew Ermans, Robert. I don't know if you know Andrew Ermans. He's an OG MCR member. He's out in California, I think now. Robert from MCR, and then Mark Brightman, who was MCR as well. And went down there, got an Airbnb, rode all over NOLA. Andy says he finishes, but he broke off from the group to try to help someone who broke down. And the only people from the Detroit area that made it through the ride was myself and Megan Miller.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we were so excited. We're like, we made it. And like, I felt really bad because I'm like, I think we have to redo Robert's Murray had spoke wheels. And I think we had to redo those when we got back, just because those rows just tore up his bike. And I'm like, oh, this is fine. None of you guys that live down here have spokes.
Yeah, that's some of the reason why I'm not going as well, because like all my hobbits right now are set up with Camino mags. I'm like, no, not. I mean, granted, the Camino mag is a thicker mag that I've seen a lot of them. Like, anyways, like they're a thicker mag than most for some reason. It's the weird idiosyncrasy shit of hobbits. When was the first time you really experienced that smile ride, or that, like, as I tell people, like that touching that sky, like where everything's fucking perfect and you're riding mopeds? Like, do you remember that? Like,
Well, I mean, I had some of that when I was learning after my first ride. Well, that was actually one of the moments, I would say, because like I was absolutely petrified. I'm like, I need to do this again. So there's that riding around Royal Oak up in Michigan. We just stayed on little side streets. We didn't go fast or anything. So I would have to say it was probably my first actual ride on Rodney's bike, not in Detroit.
okay.
We went down to Kentucky. I believe that falls underneath the 4 hour radius.
Whatever. Yeah.
It's close. We went down to Whiskey Business. It was either 6 or 7. And he's like, yeah, take my Tomos, and just like riding around in the hills down there, and actually riding with more than like 10 people at the time with MCR. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is like actual moped rallies. And this is amazing. Like just going as fast as you can. And the hills were great. Their one hill was not great. The one where they're like having people telling you to slow down. I'm like, I have both brakes on and my feet are on the ground and I'm still accelerating. And there's a note at the bottom of the hill. But yeah, that rally all around was like one of the greatest rallies, one of the greatest rides for me. And that's when I got my moped dad. So that was great.
Want to explain that a little bit for the folks?
So, I mean, I was hanging out with MCR, like we did a few things with like no-nos and going to Kentucky, and we were hanging out around the bonfire, and one of the guys is like, so Sarah, what's it like, rallying with your dad? And I'm like, what do you mean my dad? He's like, well, isn't Rodney your dad? They're like, he's always letting you ride his bike, and like you guys are always hanging out and talking together. I figured like that might be your dad. I'm like, no, but now he is.
Now he is.
So now we joke quite often that I'm his moped daughter and he's my moped dad, and we like to take selfies together when we're around each other.
That's awesome. That makes me happy. You brought, and I'm guessing this happened early on. Like, when did you meet Andy?
Not too long after MCR started. I mean, he was there pretty much at the beginning of MCR. And when I first met him, like, that guy's an asshole. I'm like, he's funny, but like, I don't know about this one. And then I married him.
I was gonna say, like, you got that like inquisitive smile you get that I like. So yeah, then you just it just all happened that quick, people. Just bam, marriage. Yeah, that's
well, what kind of happened is the guy I worked with, we were kind of seeing each other and then not seeing each other. And I happened to go to Louisville. I don't know if you know Kurt in Louisville. He owns this field and he does shrubberies.
Okay.
And he has this tiny little like getaway cabin thing that he built out there. And he's got this creek or crick. If you talk to Kurt, it's a crick. And they invited me to come down. And this was shortly after I started going to moped rallies on my own and not with another person. And I was like, great. Yeah, sure. And one of my other coworkers were like, hey, I want to come down too. I'm like, okay. And he met me down there later, but I had to pick up a motorcycle. I was doing like bringing other people's bikes. So I went by myself in my station wagon with a trailer full of bikes, and my tire broke. It was probably about 1:00 in the morning. I'm in the middle of the hills of Kentucky, hardly any cell phone service, and I get
this is
call.
not where murder. This is not like banjos are playing or anything like that. Like, yeah,
right. And I get this call from. That's one of my thought processes. I'm like, I'm in the middle of nowhere, absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
And I get this call from this number I don't know, so I answer it. And it's Andy. He's like, you should have been here a few hours ago. Are you okay? I'm like, I can hardly hear you, but it's apparently Kurt's cell phone's the only one that has cell phone service. And I'm like, I'm currently changing my tire. Like, I got a flat. I'll be there soon. And I get down there and I set up my tent and everything. And a very drunk Andy is just like, so you want to go? I think it was something like go back to the future, or go back in time. I don't know. He had this tiny like one person tent that was just shiny. Like it just looked like a spaceship. And I was just like, no. And then that was like one of the great weekends and like one of the most beautiful places to ride. I don't recommend a kickstart bike when you start at the bottom of a hill and have to go up like immediately. Yeah, the hills of Kentucky, you're basically walking your bike if you don't have momentum enough. It was great. And then the next weekend I started seeing Andy.
Aww.
Yeah. It actually was kind of a shock for a lot of people because like I was going down to Toledo often because I lived like an hour north of Detroit. So I was driving down to Toledo. The only people that really knew were the Zeros at the time. I'm like Holly and Alex and MCR, and then Alex Grow. So no one really knew for like 6 months that we were seeing each other. And then it was just like, okay, well, I guess we'll make it Facebook official. And,
oh, shit.
Shortly after that, I actually moved down to Toledo, moved in with him. But like when we made it Facebook official, it was like shit hit the fan.
Oh no.
And Liv was like, what? No, what happened? And I was just like, oh, this happened a while ago, guys.
Yeah, this is old news. Like, it was Tuesday. I updated my status. Leave me the fuck alone. Like, whatever.
Yeah. And then like a lot of
Look
people
at you
at
in
first are
love,
like,
person. You're fucking still giddy over this boy, and you should be, because he's an adorable librarian. So
right?
yes.
He just got
I know he
new
changed
job
jobs, but
position.
he'll always be a librarian to me, because that's
Well, that's like the easiest way to
hard.
explain circulation. But now he is a librarian.
Yes.
Yeah. No, so like that was like the beginning of it. I think one of the nights Alex Groh came into town. He spent with Holly and Alex in Detroit, and they're like, hey, you guys should come hang out. So it was just the five of us. And we were like bar hopping, and then we went back to Holly and Alex's house as she was making these pomegranate vodka something drinks. No, soju. It was soju and pomegranate juice. And I was just super drunk, and we were dancing in the middle of the street in the rain. It was to K-pop, obviously.
Obviously, that's the only,
Yeah.
yeah. If it wasn't going to be K-pop, I was like, I hope it's dubstep, but whatever. Okay.
I mean, Alex has a good repertoire of K-pop on his phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what that's how they knew that we were dating. Was because I was super drunk and I'd be like, yeah.
Oh, that makes me happy.
And then the wedding, like half the people at the wedding were moped people.
I love the story. I heard Andy's side of it. I want to hear your side of the proposal. Like, I heard about like,
oh, I was so pissed. So one of the other girls, she came up early with me because it's New Year's. We do a lot of, most years actually, we go up north to our cabins in Gaylord, and we can get like 3 to maybe 10 more people that come with us. And depending on one, I mean, we could be up there for 10 days and people are only up there with us for like 3 days, whatever. Well, one of the people that got up early with me, she got sick, super, super sick. And like the next day I was sick and just throwing up nonstop. And it was literally New Year's. And they're like, come on, Sarah, let's go. And we happened to get like 30 people up north. And I just thought it was a good year. I'm like, yeah, we got all our friends up here. This is great. It took forever, but everyone's here. And then I got sick. And I'm like, just go without me. I'll be fine. He's like, no, you're going. I'm like, no, I don't want to go. And like actively throwing up. He's like, no, you're going. I'm like, fine. So throwing up person drove the van full of people. We went to treetops like we normally do to watch the fireworks. And I'm just like kind of trying to eat, but then also going and throwing up in the bathroom. And all these people are like going to the bar and wrapped around Andy. I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I'm just going to try to sit here and eat my soup, whatever.
Yeah, hating and everything. Yeah.
Trying not to be too awful, but I'm just like, I hate the world.
Yeah. You got the goddamn flu. Like, you're not going to be a pleasant person to be around. I'm the worst person to be around. I'm not that good to be around normally, but then you get me sick. I'm fucking like a 3-year-old kid. I'm just whiny and crabby.
Yeah, that was me. And then they were like, oh, the fireworks are starting soon. Let's go outside. I'm like, how about we just like stay inside and just look out the window? And
you didn't give a shit about fireworks at that point.
No, like there's this beautiful like huge balcony, and like they shoot them down at the bottom of the hill, so they're exploding like just above us. It's absolutely gorgeous. But I'm like, no, I'm staying here. And Andy is just like trying to tug me outside. I'm like, no. I'm like, fine, at least let me put my gloves on first. He's like, just put your hands in your pockets. So like I'm outside up against the railing. I probably threw up like 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
My hands are freezing in my pockets, and I'm all kinds of pissed that I'm like, I just want to put my clothes on. And then Andy starts tugging at my arm. I'm like, no. And then finally I turn around and there's like 30 of our friends. Andy's family is out there because they always go up to the cabin. And then like all these strangers are just staring at me, and everyone has their phones out. And there's fireworks going on behind me. And Andy's telling me this gorgeous thing that like, I'm just kind of confused about everything going on. And I'm just like, what? And then he's like, pulls out the ring. I'm just like, I hate you right now. And of course said yes. And then
was it because you just want to get back to bed really bad? Do you figure that end it quicker?
No, because I knew there were still drinks to be had before we left Treetops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like it doesn't stop right after the fireworks. You got to let the drunk dads fight. That's always the greatest. Is the drunk skeet dads fighting. And
that
then,
homecoming game in 1993, man, they really fucked that up.
Yeah, is basically what they get into fights about. And I'm like, okay, this is entertainment. Let's watch this. Let the drunk people leave, and then we leave. So I was super excited, super surprised, because like I pegged Andy as one of those people of like maybe 5 to 8 years in a relationship proposing. It was like a year and a half.
Yeah.
So like I was not expecting anything, and I was like so happy. And like I called my parents. And I called my aunt, who's basically my big sister, and like she's bawling her eyes out. And then we just look at each other, and I'm like, well, then I get sick in the bathroom again. It's great. Yeah. I was like sick all night. And finally we leave. I'm driving because like obviously I'm sober.
And even if you weren't sober, you puked enough to be sober. So yeah.
Yeah. And then we just look at each other and we're like, we need to call Phil Perry. You met Phil. He was on the camping trip.
Yep.
He's an ordained person.
Of course he is.
Yeah. That was a fun thing altogether with that whole thing. So we called Phil immediately. Like it was mom and dad, basically sister, aunt, and then Phil Perry. Mm-hmm. And we're no questions asked. We're like, Phil, yeah, we need you to marry us. So when the time comes, you have to be available. And he's like, okay, no problem. And that was hilarious altogether because Andy messed up the paperwork.
Good for Andy. Yeah,
he didn't want to go up to Port Huron, which is like another hour north of my hometown. Because I was still registered in Michigan. So we could go there, get a Michigan wedding license thing, and then we could get married in Michigan, no problem, because we knew we wanted to get married up in Gaylord.
Yeah.
No, he had to do Ohio, which was fine because they still allowed us to get married in Michigan, but we had to be by an Ohio licensed person. Okay. Now Phil is only licensed in Michigan. And then our backup guy who was going to sign is Ohio only. Not Ohio. He let his license lapse.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So this is just a domino effect of really great.
So we got married a while later at the courthouse, and none of my family knows, so they might find out.
I think the words out, the 4 people of them might listen to this. Like, yeah.
Yeah. No, like Andy's family knew because it was like the huge joke. Whenever we would go there, his family just be on him. Are you guys married yet? Are you guys legally married yet? And like I still count the day we got married as the day we got married.
Yeah.
But like if we have to fill out paperwork, it's a little bit later.
Yeah.
And that was great because it's like not even planned either. Andy's work got shut down for the day because of pipe burst or something. I don't know. And he just looks at me and he's like, so you want to go to the courthouse? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I never took my winter jacket off. Andy's in like shorts cut off with paint on them, and he's in a ruffian's t-shirt that has a stripper on a stripper pole down the middle of the shirt.
Yep, I've seen the shirt. Yeah, not on Andy per se, but I've seen the shirt. It's fucking great.
Yeah, he was wearing that, and we went and got married. The lady, it was great because they're like, well, you can have the governor, mayor, whatever that person is. Yeah, they can, marry you, or you can go to the lady in the hallway. We're like, lady in the hallway's cheap. Let's do lady in the hallway.
Yeah.
And then she was asking like all these questions, like, you just want to do like a quick thing? I'm like, we already had the big one. She's like, oh, really? And we told her all about the wedding. And by the time we were done, she was bawling. She's like, you guys are just the best. I'm like, oh, thanks.
Did you ask her to be your grandma then? Because she would have been, I'm guessing.
She would have been. But yeah, no, she just signed the paper, and then we immediately went to Andy's grandparents' house and showed them the paper, like, here. And we took
Stop
photos.
giving a shit at family events.
Yeah, we took photos, and he had to cover his shirt with the paper because his grandma was mad he got married with a stripper pole.
As grandma should have been mad. I hope she grabbed him by the ear or the cheek or
Grandma
something.
is like the best lady on the planet. She has the style of a 20-year-old and the life of a 20-year-old, and she's like 70 or maybe close to 80. I don't know. She's the most youthful. Like, you look at her and you're like, you're gonna be my best friend, not my grandma type of person. So
Yeah.
she's great. And yeah.
That's awesome. So want to talk about like your process is becoming a zero? Like, obviously, like, was it just like you're a zero now, like, or did they actually make you do the prospect thing?
So that was an odd one for the zeros. For a hot minute, the zeros went down to like basically Andy and Cody was out of state because everyone's life's changed course and everything. We have the OG retirees, which will always be zeros. But for a while, it was kind of just Andy in Toledo. So that's why he was up in Detroit a lot, and he became a member of MCR.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly Toledo rebuilt in numbers. So it got a little bit more, but it was one of those things of like, I rode with MCR. I love MCR. MCR will always be like the most special place in my heart. I was never a member of MCR.
Mm-hmm.
When I always wanted to be, because they are just absolutely amazing. When I started coming down here to Toledo a lot, and even after moving in, I was like, okay, I would love to be a zero. Like, these are my family. They're constantly over at our house. At the time, we were like the zeros compound house. We had Matt and his girlfriend, now wife, downstairs in one room. Elliot, and at the time he was dating Molly, was down in the other room. We were upstairs, and like Meg and Jared were always at our house anyway. So like literally we were the zeros house. So we were like one big family, and I was just like, I would love to be a zero, but I feel like it's inappropriate for me to ask to be a zero. Like, I don't
I hear what you're saying. Like, yeah.
And then Andy, he also wanted me to be a zero, but he also was just like, I don't want to be that guy, like, you know, either. And it wasn't until the other zeros came to Andy and was just like, so we want to make Ma a zero. Are you okay with that? And then they didn't say anything to me, but they had like this secret prospecting period.
Oh, okay.
where I was a prospect to them, but they never told me I was a prospect. And then we had a rally where the main spot was our house where people were camping at or sleeping at. And at the rally, I love my Megaboo. She was supposed to give like the speech and then just like make me a member. But my Megan loves to cry when she gets happy. Oh. She has the best ugly cry ever. If you ever want to see her ugly
Does
cry.
snot come down the nose and everything, or?
Not too much there.
Okay.
But like it's beautiful. I have a picture of her ugly cry from my wedding. It will forever be my most favorite picture of my wedding. But yeah, she went to give a speech and she just broke down crying. I'm like, Meg, are you okay? Like,
are you dying? What's going on here?
Yeah, and like I was helping out, obviously. I mean, it's at my house, and like I'm always going to help the zeros no matter what. So like I'm running, taking care of things, I'm doing the little desk thing, and all I hear from Meg is just like family and Ma and zeros, and I'm just like, are you okay, Meg? Like, you didn't break down at the last rally. And that's when all of a sudden Andy just took over and was just like, so Sarah, we want you to be a zero. I'm like, oh, that's what Megan was saying. And
that's why. Okay. Yeah.
And then they gave me a big bottle of champagne or cider, one of the two. I don't know. Because like the zeros, they tend to, when you become a prospect, a beer gets put to the side, usually like a Beast Ice or PBR or something.
Mhm.
It gets placed to the side, and then when you become a member, you drink this beer.
Okay.
Or a random beer that they found in the shop, or nasty Merlot. No.
You know what? I gotta pause you for a second. I haven't drank since I was 19, and like I drank some really shitty stuff. I never knew of Marlowe up until a couple weeks ago. Like,
Yeah, just no,
no.
no, just that. And then also LSB. I love them, but they sent Andy these two like gallon sized things of this coffee liqueur. I can't even have him open the bottle in the same room as me without like getting instantly nauseous. Like, you need
Gag
to go.
reflexes kicking in. You're like, oh god.
Yeah. So like some zeros got initiated with that, but it's normally beer, and I'm like very allergic to gluten. So they gave me the cider, champagne, whatever it was, and like I chugged half a bottle of it.
Nice.
It was fine. But then Damon comes running out of the crowd because Damon, he's OG nasty action and one of Andy's very first friends with mopeds. So like these two have been best friends, buddy. And he knows that on top of chugging this nasty beer that's been sitting for months, or even just a random one that you found like 3 years later, you get showered in beer. They actually electrocuted one of the guys showering when he had a microphone.
It's okay. It's only 110 volts.
Yeah.
It just makes you feel alive. Like it's not going to kill you.
So he comes up with a bottle of beer and he's shaking it and trying to spray me with it. And he gets like halfway up my leg, and Andy jumps in between the two of us. It's like, no, like movie action. It was great.
Yeah.
And he's like, Sarah's allergic. And Tippy's like, oh, I always forget. And he did the same thing when we got proposed and at the wedding. I also won a raffle bike at MCR, and he did it as well. And I'm like, Damon, beer.
Slapping. Yes.
Yeah. So.
Because I'm that guy too. Like I'll forget like a friend or somebody's gluten intolerant, and like I'll overcorrect my mistake when it comes to the gluten. Like, oh my god, like
yeah. Well, I mean, just going up to, we went up to the cabins for the week and a half. We did a camping trip, and the zeros came up, and we tried doing some salmon fishing, all that. We went to the store, and even Steve's like, oh, we can't get this bread for Sarah. It's honey bread. And Andy just looked at him like, well, she can't have the bread to begin with, Steve. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I definitely would have killed Sarah.
Definitely would have killed Sarah.
But yeah, that's how I got in with the zeros. And like at the time we were at the OG shop, it was like a 3-car little garage that Andy's dad owned the property of. So we rented it from him. And I just looked around, and when I first started dating Andy, we had the spare bedroom that had like 7 mopeds in it, and then the ones at the shop. And slowly we just kept getting more mopeds between the two of us, and then we're like, we don't have space for mopeds anymore. And then we were getting more members in the group, and then that's how we got over to the South shop, and then we went to the Beal shop, and now we bought our own shop. So no worries with that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you guys can find a way to fill that up, because when I was there, like you guys were still kind of getting settled in, and like,
yeah,
it was pretty filled up then.
Well, we actually already took one of the side rooms that we said no mopeds are going to go in there. Now there's a shelf and like 2 shelving things of mopeds.
Of course it is.
Yeah. We'll find room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's makes me smile just think about it. You guys have a really awesome thing going there. When was there a point you were ready to quit mopeds?
I don't think there really was a moment. I mean, there's
Even when
always
you couldn't figure out an issue with the bike, like you had to walk away for a day or two. Like, do you remember that first time? We're like, this is dumb. I quit.
not really, no.
Good, you fucking rock star. Hold on a second. I got a cough. Wow. Edit that out. Maybe,
I mean,
maybe not. I've gotten really lazy with editing.
I'm one of those people that like I grew
Oh, you're
up.
determined as fuck. I can tell you that. Like,
Yeah.
just me. Like,
If you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna keep doing it till I can, first of all.
yeah.
Second of all, like I told you, my dad, he's not gonna come save you. You have to rig it up and take it home.
Yeah.
So like I've done so many weird things. But then once I moved out of the house, the very first time I moved onto campus, I was like halfway through my junior year. I'm in this tiny Ford Festiva, if you know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And like I just met my first friend at college, and he invited me to come over and like meet the family and like have dinner. He's like, yeah, you're new. And like he was homeschooled before this as well. So like he didn't have any friends. We're like, let's be friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, he invited me over, and like it just had this winter storm, and I was trying to use Google to get to his house, and my phone was starting to die.
Oh,
and
no.
my muffler broke off at the front of where it connects to the engine.
Oh, wow.
And there you can unbolt it into two sections. That was rusted, and you can't get it off without getting it over the axle. Yeah, it was stupid. So here I was in a town I didn't know, in a place that Google kind of took me to. My phone died because I was using it as a flashlight.
Of course.
I was in some empty parking lot trying to use my jack on an iced parking lot. It was great.
Yeah.
I rigged up my car with a scarf and my belt going through my window, and I held it up while driving a stick shift and managed to get myself back to campus. And I'm like, all I need is, a wire coat hanger. I got that. And I'm like, I know that there's the Formula SAE shop. I'm like, I can go there. They have tools. I got this. And I just called my parents and like, just after my phone recharged, and like, just so you know, I'm okay. This is what happened. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, I'm on the ground floor next to the exit. I hear this pounding on my window, and I was petrified.
Yeah.
And after a while, I kind of got used to it, because like when the drunk people couldn't get the door to open, they would just knock on the closest window, which, yeah. But it's my parents. And they're two tiny, very barking dogs at 5 o'clock in the morning. Keep in mind, my roommates, I had 3 roommates at the time. I didn't get to choose. So like, I'm not just met these people. They went to bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So I'm just in there, I'm like, what are you guys doing? And then of course they come in with their dogs. You're not allowed to have animals. Yeah.
You want to die of embarrassment at this point.
Yeah, and they're barking so loud, like the entire floor gets woken up because they're hearing it through the hallway.
Oh,
I'm just
Jesus
like,
Christ.
oh dear Lord. And my mom, I love my mom, I love my parents. She's like, oh, your dad just wanted to come over and make sure the car was okay. And I'm like, at 5:30 in the morning though?
Yeah.
And there's my dad in the parking lot, and he brought like all the tools, not just like a wire hanger. And he fixed my car for me. And they're like, okay, we'll see you this weekend. And then they just took off.
Jesus
and my
Christ.
roommates were so mad at me. But like, that's what I grew up with. Like, you rig it up, you get it home. It wasn't until then my dad would come out, and it's just like what it was with mopeds. You figure out a way to make it work, and you just keep going.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. Like,
and then like, we reached a point where we had so many mopeds, we would go to moped rallies, and I'm like, ride it till it dies. If it dies, whatever. I have backup mopeds. I don't have to worry about not being able to ride. It's okay. There's just the one I did not do that with. It was the Atlanta ride. We went down to Atlanta. One of the greatest and most terrifying rides are the rides with the Atlanta crew.
Yeah. Like I've been to the ATL a few times, and like not
Yeah.
moped related, but oh fuck, that town
Oh.
riding mopeds in, and like just the shit I hear about the swoops, like rad guys I've met them here or there, but like
I love them. They're so great.
That should be the goal of every moped club, is to not like endanger people, but to fuck with people on their rides.
Oh yeah,
like
that's definitely how it was. A lot of people got down into the train tracks, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's the train tracks that run in the road, and then they go back and forth between the lanes. So you kind of have to hit them at an angle. If you don't hit them at a good enough angle, your tire fits perfectly into that hole.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of times Andy's just like rolling up on people that fell down. He's just grabbing by the shirt and picking them back up with their bikes, and then we just kept going. We were doing really good, and then I knew on this bike Andy just won. It was like Germany or someplace in Europe, eBay, that he won this like extremely rare part for his bike. I think it was the cylinder or something. And it was on this bike. I'm like, okay, my pipe just broke. We kind of did something. I'm like, if it was my bike, I would just, hold the pipe on with my foot and keep riding till it dies. But Andy would get really mad if I killed the cylinder on him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the one where he stopped to try to help me, and we got away from the group. And there's like 5 of us total that were broken down this one section. And we called Chase. They had room for the bikes, but not the people. And we ordered like an XL Uber, but just a normal car came. And we were trying to we were trying to figure out like, well, I guess we'll get a second Uber. And I think it was Charlie Buzzard. I don't know. I can't remember now. They were like, don't worry, I'll just get a car by myself. It's fine. We're like, no, like we'll just do like 2 and 3 or something. He's like, no, just go. Just, give me the helmets. I'll put them in the trunk. We're like, okay, if you're fine with it. He's like, yeah, no problem. And then all of a sudden we're all inside the Uber and it's moving, and we get these notifications on our phone, and we're like, we pull up. He's live streaming from the trunk of the Uber. He put himself in the trunk and was like live streaming it the entire way to the checkpoint. And then, because we're all seeing this, we're trying not to bust out laughing or cause too much noise for him, like the driver, to realize.
Yeah.
And then the driver's like, oh, let me go get your guys' helmets out of the back. When we stopped, we're like, no. Let's just pop the truck, we'll get him.
That's
and
some gangster ass shit. I love
out.
it. Like, yeah, that's fucking, I've never heard that story before. Like some of the big stories you always hear cycled around. You've done Baker's Dozen, haven't you?
I did.
Or
when it was called Pinball. It was Pinball 2, and I just drove Chase, but still it was intense.
Yeah. Want to talk about your little experience with that? Because
our team consisted of Samuel, Holly, and Robert from Detroit riding. They all had matching bikes engine wise, so that they can just like interchange parts. And we actually left Detroit, went to Chicago to pick up Alex Groh and Robert from the Chicago rally, and then continued to Minneapolis. That one went from Minneapolis down to NOLA. The first night we went out riding for dinner and all that stuff after we got to the campsite. Only people at this entire campsite. And somehow my pants got stolen while they were drying out on the car.
Awesome.
So either some random person walked into camp, just grabbed my pants and left, or
you can't trust people on that side. See, I live on the right side of the river. That's the Minneapolis side of the river. You can't trust people there. Fucking
either that or
savages.
Someone from Pinball 2 secretly has my pants. Savages. One of the two.
Savage.
They were my favorite pants too.
Yeah.
The first night was the longest night. I think we got in at like 4:00 in the morning. We were prepared, but not fully prepared. I think one of the bikes got tinkered with the night before, like just trying to, make it perfect, but then it want to go above like 35 or something. So it's really slow. Alex Groh and I were doing chase, swapping back and forth. telling you one thing, having allergies and riding that route, living out of gas stations. I eat a lot of popcorn.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have allergies and you're coming to the Midwest, especially Minnesota, fucking Claritin D 24-hour is your friend. Like I can't. The older I get, the fucking worse allergies I get. Like I eat that shit like Tic Tacs now.
Yeah, so it wasn't the greatest food wise, but like the first night we got in at like 4, and we're like reading the chat groups, and some people were kind of worried because apparently there was gunshots like close to the check-in sleeping point.
Oh wow. Where was that?
Like I don't know. I can find my shirt and I can tell you.
It's okay.
Yeah, and us coming from Detroit, we're like, oh, okay, well then that's probably the safest spot. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, well, if the cops are coming to the shooting location, no one else is going to be shooting around there. Like they're gonna go. So we didn't think anything of it. And we were like some of the last to come in. And so we had to sleep in the parking lot instead of in the building. There was enough room. And it's like gravel parking lot. There's some factory running nonstop in the background. There's a train that goes through, and we slept like babies. And everyone else just like, I don't know how you slept through that. I'm like, Detroit.
Yeah.
We got this.
Yeah.
And it was just like the greatest trip. It was like my first big adventure. I mean, we went down to NOLA and everything, but like this was a totally different thing. I mean,
I've never done, but I don't think you could ever truly encapsulate what that excursion was like.
Well, Andy just did the Bakers that went from like Detroit out to Maine. And with him, his long days were like 100 something miles. And I'm like, that was our shortest day. Our longest day was like 400 miles for this trip. I slept in backyards. We slept at the motorcycle clubhouse, people's living room floors. There's one night we had a hotel room because there wasn't a group in between that could host us. So that was just like all around crazy. I remember saving Alex. One of the bikes broke down on this little backcountry road. There's this cool like abandoned house off to the side, and we went and checked that out. And while they were fixing the bikes, me and Alex were just playing frisbee because, you know, what else is there to do out there? Exactly. And our frisbee went over a fence into someone's pasture. And he's like, oh, I'm just going to jump the fence and go grab them. Like, that's how you get shot out in the country. You don't do that.
Yeah. I was going to say, you don't fuck around with no.
And he's just like, what are you talking about? I'm like, we're going to go up to that house up there. We're going to ask permission. He's like, oh, no, that's how. No. So I'm assuming you met Alex.
Yep.
Tall dude.
Yep.
Tall, big, broad. And he was hiding behind me. Like, I had a knock on the door, and I explained to the farmer, I'm like, it's an old time farm out in the middle of nowhere. He has a shotgun at his front door.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh yeah, it's good that you came up here. I was wondering what you people are doing. I'm like, oh, we're just doing a moped race and our bike broke down. He's like, yeah, I'll walk you out to the pasture. Like, he walked us out there. It was super nice. And Alex just like, I thought we were going to get shot. I'm like, no, doing this is how you don't get shot in the country.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because especially if they have animals, like they're.
Oh yeah, they had I think they bred beagles or something, because there was a whole bunch of beagles off to the side. They were just going off the whole time as well. And I was just like, I'm sorry, we're making all this noise.
That's so awesome. A beagle breeder.
Yeah. And it was great. I thought Bob almost died once, Robert. He was doing all the navigation, and we got in the right lane, trying to let cars go by, and like cars stopped going by. So he saw like this turnout spot off to the left. He's like, oh, we're going to go there, stop, and like figure out our next path. But as he did that, while he's looking down to like try to do his thing, the same exact time, a semi that he couldn't see behind me also went into the left lane.
Oh, Jesus.
And he is slowing down to turn left, not realizing the semi is behind him. And like the semi's locking his tires, blaring his horn. We're screaming in the car, like blaring our horn. The other two are trying to get his attention. And then all of a sudden Robert disappears. I'm like, I think I just watched Robert die. Like,
Yeah.
what, huh? And then we're all just like complete panic attack. And the semi just has all this smoke behind him from the tires. And he keeps going and the smoke dissipates. And there's Robert on the shoulder on the other side of the road, like completely clueless that anything happened. And we're all just start screaming at it.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So like that was the one scary moment. The one happy moment was being in the car and not on a bike. Was going through this cornfield, and then all of a sudden, out of the middle of nowhere, it was like locusts, 3 or 4 inch long locusts, just bombarding them. I mean, thousands of them, and we just rolled up the windows. We're so happy we're not on the bike, and like they finally got through this field, and all of a sudden they just stopped. There's like this one stretch that had all of the locusts, and Holly was just covered in all this like sliminess.
Oh
yeah, and she vowed to wear the same riding clothes. And I'm just like, oh no, not anymore.
Let's correct that action right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we got down to NOLA. It was just a blast. Just being like getting to the finish line with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And every like night, it was like a celebration that we made it. Sabat didn't even make it to the first check-in point. The first night, he kept breaking down. He was refused to stop. So he was always like a day behind us until we reached NOLA. He got there at the same time as us. And
that's so awesome.
It was just like this happiness of like your friends are there. We went and saved, I believe it was Smithy, because her axle snapped and none of the chase were around her. So we broke away from her path. Even the bikers broke away, and we went and saved her axle. And then as a thank you, Jenny Ray showed up at our next stop rest point with a box of wine.
Of course.
Yeah. And then the trip home from NOLA was not the greatest. Holly and Alex flew out. The other Alex actually stayed in NOLA for like months, apparently.
Alex
and then Robert, yeah.
I was gonna say, is this the trip that like Alex decided to move to New Orleans?
Yeah, that was the trip.
Yeah, because like I think Mono had the rule after a while, like you have to leave. Like you can't stay here. We have
brought
to
him.
leave. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Robert and I had the whole drive back, and normally it's like 16 hours if you have to stop for gas and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It took us 48 hours, and I had to call my boss 2 days in a row to tell him I can't come to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our axle, the wheels had to be greased every so many thousand miles, and we were borrowing Andy's trailer.
Okay.
And he only told Robert this. This is the key point. He only told Robert. So no one in the car knew, because Robert never told us, and Andy never told us. So, I mean, we drove from Toledo to Detroit to Chicago, Minneapolis, down to New Orleans, and then we were like in the middle of nowhere, Alabama.
Yeah.
And the wheel broke. And we like tried fixing it this one way, ended up staying the night at a hotel. We went to this gas station, and some guy tried to sell him drugs at the gas station, and some other guy tried to pick me up to become a hooker at the gas station.
I was gonna say, were you proposed to be a prostitute at the same gas station? Because that's our logic. Yeah,
and then we both got in the car. We're like, we need to get out of here.
You think?
And then it catastrophically broke. And at this time, it was probably like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. It broke, and didn't make it much farther than the last time it broke. And somehow we found on Craigslist this old couple, like 45 minutes away, were still awake, and they had a homemade trailer that they were willing to sell us. So
It's fucking mopeds. I love it.
Yeah, we had to abandon our trailer with the mopeds, thousands of tools and extra parts. We had to abandon it on the side of the road, drive all the way out. We told the guy where we were at, and he's like, go now, like speed, get there and get your trailer if it's still there. Like, he's like, that's a bad spot. And I'm in flip-flops, and I go out to try to help Robert get everything off the one trailer onto the new trailer. And we had to abandon Andy's like 100+ year old trailer. It was the cutest little thing. It's now someone's trailer down in Alabama. We had to abandon it on the side of the road.
Shit happens.
I was trying to help Robert, and I walked through a fire ant hill, and both my feet were just on fire, and then they kept following me.
Of course. Yeah, you got the sweet blood, kid. What can you say?
Yeah, I had to stay in the car, and I couldn't help Robert. I felt horrible. And then we had to stay at a hotel another night because, like, after all that, we were just exhausted.
And you guys have been on the road for like 10 days, 12 days at this point. Like, you're fucking half delusional anyways. And like,
yeah, it was not the time to keep driving. And we got back to Detroit the next day. I don't think I've ever been happier to see Ohio.
Said nobody ever until you just did. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got back to Detroit, and we were unloading things. And that's when we found out that this whole box of tools were gone off the trailer. That was like thousands of dollars worth of tools. And we felt so awful. And Alex and Holly were like, no, you're fine. We understand the situation. We're like, we can help. And they're like, no. Like, you went through this hell. You're fine. But yeah, that was my pinball.
That's so fucking rad. So what are you looking forward to, like, with the season kind of wrapping up? What's your like 2022 moped plans? Like, are the Zeros gonna throw a rally? Are you just kind of wait and see to what the other moped clubs are doing?
Hoping to throw a rally. We're not sure. I know right now we have a winter event planned, and you should be seeing that pop up on Moped Army soon once we pick up a name for it. It's usually the beginning of February, and I think now we're doing like mid-February. Secrets coming out right now. It is going to be, vaccinated people. We have a few people that are kind of medically issues, like me, that like, no, don't come around me type of thing. So that's kind of the plans. We might be able to do the rally, but like when we host our rallies, we go big versus some of the other groups. Like, you might have to go fend for yourself for food once. We're normally providing food. We provide all the beer. We have a place for you to stay. Like, we do a whole lot of things that cost a lot of money and a lot of upfront planning. Like, we're planning for like 9 months before we have a rally.
That's yeah. I've been told more than once you guys do it right.
Yeah, and like just constantly going through, mapping out routes, figuring out who is doing what, so everything kind of runs smoothly, backup plans in case like construction or something happens. So it does tend to be a lot. Don't know. Also depends on how all this COVID stuff is for the next bit. Personally, for me, I just want to ride. I went about a year without riding anything because I messed up a foot jumping off a waterfall. Had about 9 months of different boots. I had surgery on my foot. And then when I first started riding a little bit, it was actually June of this year. I started riding on my motorcycle because it's not as vibrating as my mopeds, and I wasn't sure if my foot could handle that. So I went on like 2 or 3 rides, and then like I messed up my back
Oh,
and then couldn't ride again. I was just like, come on. And just over this last week, I broke my foot, and
your
Wednesday
good
I
foot,
find out
people.
what's
Her
going
good foot.
my good foot. So I have a bad foot that I've been using with my crutches. So that foot's mad, and then I have a broken heel on the other foot. So I'm just hoping to ride next season.
Yeah.
Something, anything. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's rough. That's all I can say.
yeah.
Like I feel like we've all had our injuries, but like, yeah, that's just a bummer.
It
That's
was
all
like
there is.
back to back, and both times it was like on our long 1 weekend trip up north. And like this time I just fell in a hole on a golf course that was covered in leaves.
Oh,
A drain hole. I'm an engineer.
mhm.
In the ranking of engineers, we always joke that civil engineers are the worst. If there's anything done with roads or something's wrong with the building, like civil engineers. Yeah, for some reason, this person thought it'd be a good place to put the drain pipe for the hill halfway out up the hill instead of at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, because
And
that makes sense.
yeah, and it's like on the backside, so you can't see it when you're coming up to it.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's a drain, so it eroded around there, and then it's fall, so there's leaves all over it. And I didn't even see it, and I just went down.
Oh,
And yeah, it was
I
fine. It was like almost the last hole, so I'm like, yeah, everyone play your last hole. It's fine. And I
yeah,
chugged an entire bottle of champagne worth of mimosas.
nice.
Yeah, it was fine.
I started a new job recently. I really like it, but like I heard a line I never heard before. Like, they keep on trying to idiot proof things, but they just keep on coming out with a better idiot.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah. That was our thing. And like, I mean, even though like we're not your typical moped group. I mean, a lot of moped groups, I'm sure Andy's told you this, they like you meet once a week or
mhm.
like, you
Well,
only
let
see that
me
person
stop you
like
for a
one day.
second. Like, as an outsider's perspective, like I'm that person who like I observe the situation. You guys are a family. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, and that you guys have a really attractive thing that's going on in Toledo, with what you and Andy do. Like, because you guys, like, I don't know the whole story, but like you guys got that shop. I mean, it grants the zeros, but like somebody had to sign the title. Somebody has to carry the insurance. Like
Yeah.
that's a big thing for anybody to do in any type of community. And like just how cohesive everything is there. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, you might have
we
been just
still
putting on a
had-
show because I was in town, but like it
Oh
was
no.
fucking like I enjoyed everybody a lot. And like Andy is fucking very gracious and you're really awesome. And like I
like to feed people. I like to make sure people have food.
yeah,
No.
like I fell in love with all you guys, like fucking great people. Like I can't wait for a long weekend to get out and see you guys. I might even just fly out for your swap meet just to fucking hang out.
I mean, we're always happy with people doing that as well. We love seeing everyone. And like we're always at people's houses. People don't see on our Facebook posts because like a lot of groups, they just use what they post on Facebook as their get-togethers. Us, we have a band chat that if you put down your phone for an hour, there's like between 30 to 100 messages that you missed. And it's just like you go to sleep and well, now Jared, he just got a job and he's in school. So now this is a very recent thing. I think he was in school when we did our camping trip, but not his job yet. So now we're not getting the messages anymore, but he would stay up to like 4 to 7 o'clock in the morning. And then you have Cody, who's always like states away and he has odd times. And Matt just moved, but he was out in Arizona and he's like a few time zones away. And Brian has insomnia, I believe. So like he's up late. And like you wake up in the morning and it's just like Jared either talking to himself or like one other person. And then you have 60 messages. And I'm like, okay.
That's fucking rad. But
yeah, like that's the stuff people don't see is like we're always talking. We're always at people's houses. So when we go on trips, like when we went up north, yeah, me and Andy had a few days where we did our own thing, but then the next weekend we had a majority of the zeros up. I mean, we had Steve up, Bruno, Alexis, Meg, and Jared. We have a couple of people that hang out with us, Amy and Brent. They come up with us, and we had an entire cabin full, and then me and Andy had to stay on the bus with the animals. That's how many people came up, and we were just, had fun and did not catch a salmon. Andy's dad did.
Oh.
Yeah, we got up there. We're like, none of our fishing gear is equipped for this. Like, just watching the people wrangle in the fish, we're like, no.
That's fucking great. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show this week. Like, I'm so glad you did.
There's so many moped stories. I'm not gonna lie. There's so many of them.
Oh, I'm gonna one of these days. Like,
we will chat.
Yes. I gotta get out. Like, I gotta get back out there. Just to ride and see you guys. Like, you guys, like, I gotta do like one of these days. I'm gonna do a show with like everybody who I feel like we have more stories to chit chat about, and I'm not like. I'm in a weird spot in my life right now. We'll say like where I'm going through a lull again with the show where like I want to do it, I don't want to do it, I want to do it, I don't want to do it. Like, but I'm doing it because like I have some people tell me like you are my connection to the moped community. I'm like, now I feel pressure, and now like, but it's good. It keeps me responsible. But just between starting the new job and like. I'm decided to shed my Rona weight because I actually saw one of Andy's pictures of me with you guys. I'm like, I got fat. And like,
I feel you on that. And it's not really the Corona weight. The meds for my foot, I've gained like 50 pounds. And I just like looking at myself, I'm like, we need to exercise a bit.
Yeah. Well, I've been pretty dedicated the last 3 weeks. I've lost like 15 pounds, but like I've cut carbs.
Bad.
Well,
are you doing the keto thing?
No, I'm just doing my wrestling thing. Where like when I was a wrestler, in my ute, I would like cut weight big time, and I'm not going like the gnarly ways I did it then, but like I just stopped eating bread I lied. I cut out 90% of bread in my diet. I eat it at lunch because I still eat a terrible lunch, but like I eat eggs in the morning, scrambled eggs, and then like I'll eat like I go to Costco and get a bag of organic mixed vegetables, and I'll like this is my health proportion sizes, 2 scoops of that with my hand, and I microwave it for 2.5 minutes, and I have like a fish fillet at night. That and working out.
See, we've been doing the Blue Apron meal service. So
how is that? Like I'm really thinking about doing that because I need to do a meal service because
it's really good.
I eat like shit. I'll be the first one to admit it. And like I had a cheat day on Friday. I'm not gonna lie. First real cheat day. I had half a Pizza Hut pizza stuffed crust.
I mean, every once in a while you got to go with that pizza.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the fucking greatest food ever.
Pizza is what I would like.
God damn, it's good.
No, Blue Apron is really good. I mean, you don't realize how much you might be overeating just because there's still food on your plate and you're not really hungry, but you don't want to throw away the food. But with Blue Apron, it's just like, it's the right size. The one thing I have a lot of issues with is it's got a lot of like garbage. Like everything is bagged in a plastic that you have to throw away. And Megan does Hello Fresh, and everything that they get is in some type of a cardboard or recyclable like paper bag type of deal.
Okay.
So hers she throws away. But HelloFresh doesn't have a lot of gluten-free options. Blue Apron has more, but I'm still having to modify things. So we switch out a lot of things here and there. But like, I'm probably one of the healthiest eaters when it comes to like, I eat a really good meal in the morning. I'm doing like smoothies with all the fruits and veggies type of thing. Bella, the pig, has really brought a lot of veggies into our lives. Ones I didn't think I would ever eat. I'm now eating because of Bella.
I still can't eat broccoli. I'll try broccoli or cauliflower. Like I just can't do it. Like I've lost most of my taste buds throughout my life, whether it be smoking or head injuries. I still can't do fucking cauliflower and the little trees can't fucking do it.
I don't blame you on the cauliflower. Like, I've had a couple companies that like their pizza crust is good. A lot of them that's like, oh, it's a cauliflower crust. No, it still tastes bad. But broccoli, I have really started to like, and it's hilarious because Bella will only eat it if you chop it up really fine. She won't or just the stem. She won't eat like the head of the broccoli.
Do you yell at her like, you're a pig? This is what you do. You eat.
Oh, she's so picky. Like, she loves green beans, but they have to be cooked. You can give her as many raw green beans and she will not eat them.
Oh wow.
She doesn't like parsnips. And like, even she's bougie.
It sounds like it.
If it's raining outside, she doesn't go outside. If there's a puddle, she'll like walk around it. She doesn't do mud at all.
That's so awesome.
She just, I mean, her cage is set up right next to the radiator. So like if she's cold, she's got all of her blankets. She's got the radiator. The AC's in the window right next to her. So like in the summertime, she's just AC'd. And
feels like her mom and dad spoiled the
bougie
fuck
life
out of her. Yeah.
She gets a lot of treats, you know. And once COVID hopefully dies down or gets better or something, beforehand she used to go to like the elementary schools and the libraries as well, and they would do like reading days with her, and like the kids would get to pet her and feed her little cherry tomatoes. And yeah,
that was
she's
one bummer. I didn't get to meet Bella. Like I know, like Andy, like I just wanted to I wanted to get home.
I love her.
I should have stayed that night that we got back from the camp trip. He's like, yeah, but whatever. Next time.
I mean, she's also like a 4-year-old toddler. Like, dogs just want to please you. They'll do whatever to make you happy. With her, you'd be like, hey, come do this. And she's like, no, I want to go do that. And she'll go. And like, she throws little temper tantrums. And when she does, it sounds like you're killing her. And I'm like, no, you just have to go down to go potty because it's been 24 hours since you peed. Like, you need to go potty. It's just like, it's raining. No. Yeah, it's great.
That's so awesome. Right on. All right. I'm definitely gonna have you back. I'm gonna do a show of just like,
there's so many stories.
I know, like recurring guests. I need to start like, I really enjoyed your episode. I enjoyed like the Joe Peg episode, like where both of you I know have just fantastic moped stories to tell, and like we
get like the locker stories that people don't really hear about because like I've been like around mopeds or in the scene for like a decade now this year. I don't wrench as much as some other people just because like I didn't have the time, or like I have fibro, so my hands get really messed up and like it hurts to wrench. So like Andy will hop in and do a lot of stuff for me that like I can do it and I know how to do it, or like I can technically walk myself through it looking at an image, but physically I just can't that day. It's gotten bad sometimes with riding where I just can't ride and I end up having to do chase because I physically can't sit on a bike. MCR saved me once with that and kind of scared some of the people when that happened. And then moped dad came in, rescued me, took me to the side, made me feel better. It's fine. He's like, go get her meds. No one come near her. Give her space. Here, take this. I'm like, thanks, Dad.
That's
so I don't have as many stories about like, oh, I have this bike and it's got ABC parts on it, or you know, I've done this and that, but I got like those underground stories that people don't know about.
That's so fucking rad. And that's what I love about this. Like everybody's got their own journey and own part of the moped community. And like, I don't care if you're like, and when I say I don't care, I mean like I don't hold people in a bad light if you don't necessarily wrench all the time. If that's not a part of your moped journey,
Yeah.
that's okay, people. Like that's what I don't get with some people like trying to bust each other's chops. Well, they don't work on their own bikes. Who gives a shit? Like,
yeah, that's like one of the things with zeros. Like, there's a few things that are like the standards to be a zero. You have to have bikes, you have to ride, and you have to wrench. And it's not that you have to know everything. Like, I obviously don't. Andy's still learning, and he's been in this much longer than me and has worked on thousands more bikes than I have ever even seen.
Yeah, how is that Indigan bike going?
So many bikes. So many bikes.
I heard he finally kind of got it going again, but then he had issues again with that bike. It's cursed.
Yeah,
it's cursed.
He doesn't like to talk about it.
I felt so bad for him just working like because that's
he's been trying so hard. I still don't think it's running. Yeah, I think he planned to the other day and just no. But yeah, I mean, like, we like people to be able to work on it. Obviously, I don't work on them a lot right now with the whole fibro stuff here and there. And then also when I worked up in Michigan, that's like 3 hours of me driving, and then I'm exhausted. I don't want to do crap when I get home. No. And like, everyone has their own issues here and there that they're not wrenching all the time. But to be able to have the ability to wrench, to be able to understand how your bike runs, for me, is a safety thing. I go to rallies without other people, so I need to be able to get my bike going. If I get stuck in the middle of nowhere, I need to kind of figure out how to do something. When I worked at Chrysler, after I got Tom, he was my daily driver. If it was above 20 and I could put on my snowsuits and it wasn't raining, I was riding him to work.
That's so awesome.
For like, I kept all my little tools in there. And I remember one time it was like the first day that the motorcycle parking was reopened because they shut it down for the winter. And all the Harley guys were like, yeah, we're going to ride together. I'm like, I'll ride in too. And they're like, yeah. So we planned it on a Friday. And Monday morning comes around and I pull up, and keep in mind the Harley guys get there before me, and there's no bikes. It's a freaking ghost town. And it's just my tiny little Tomos. I'm like, so then I go walking into the office and you just hear my little snow pants like, and then I was like, you actually rode him? Like, yeah, who's assisting now? But no, I rode him every single day to and from work. So like, I had to be able to fix it if something happened, and like know at least the basics. And that, for me, like, I feel like anyone who rides a moped should have that knowledge. You should know, oh, this is a spark plug and how to change a spark plug, because that is going to go. You should know how to like swap out something super simple like that. Where there are people that don't know how to do that and they just hand the bike over, which is fine if that's person's going to be riding with you all the time, but I don't have people riding with me all the time. I mean, even my motorcycles, I surprised Andy because I'm like, I like stopped bearing my bike with his bikes behind mine in the garage. I'm like, I go out every once in a while without you. He's like, wait, you ride without me? I was like, sometimes, you're doing your own thing. I go ride my motorcycle. No,
so it's weird to talk to scooter people about that, because like I've been riding with scooter people a little bit this fall, and like none of those people work on their bikes. None. Like I asked one guy, I go, are you coming to this event? Well, I want to, but my starter's out and it's down at Scooterville right now, because every goddamn state has a scooter shop called Scooterville. And like, I'm like, okay. And I didn't bust his chops about it because like that's his thing. And like, okay, like I don't know what that's like. Like,
and
but again, if that's your thing and you want to pay somebody, dude, rock and roll.
Yeah, especially like with girls, because guys, I don't think that they always realize the shit us girls go through. But like, if we're broken down, like if you guys are broken down the side of the road, you're just getting people passing you. Like you might get a motorcycle dude that stops to help because like he's kind. But like if they know that it's a girl broken down, you get all these creepers rolling up. Oh, honey, do you need help? Oh, just hop in my car. I'm not getting in your car. Like, no, no, no.
No, fuck that.
Not
No.
happening. No. And like I said that once to Andy because like it's not something that a lot of guys actually think about because it's never really happened. I mean, we did a pride parade. We do pride parades all the time down here in Toledo. And we were riding our mopeds and they just were all overheating because we're going super slow. And most of the crew split off and got to the shop, and like the rest of us were trying to finish it, didn't finish it. And we broke off, and we were only like a block and a half from the shop, and Megan's bike completely died. There's no starting this thing again. And I'm like, oh, you want me to like walk back with you? It's like 2 blocks away. She's like, oh no, you can go, you can go. I'm like, are you sure? Yeah, no problem. I got like maybe 100 yards in front of her, and I looked back, and there's some creeper dude in a truck trying to get her to go with him.
Jesus
And
Christ.
she's just like, no, no, no. And I turned around and I scooped in between them. I was like, honey, how did you break down? Come on, I'll walk back with you. And she's like, okay. I'm like, I got this to the guy. And then we started just like slowly going back to the shop. And she's like, he wouldn't leave me alone. He wouldn't stop. And like,
Jesus. Yeah.
sure, there's probably the guys that are good-hearted and do want to help and they're not trying to be creepers, but there's a mass amount that just no.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like
I like to think I'm in
my
that
safety
category of I'm a good-hearted person and I want to help you, but I understand when somebody says no, it means fucking no. Like, yeah.
That, and like not everyone knows strangers coming
Exactly.
up to them. Like,
exactly. And like I have 2 older sisters, so like I get like it's totally different pair of glasses, if you will. But yeah, you got me excited for the next time you'll be on, because I'm not gonna lie, Sarah, this is a different day for me recording, and I'm fucking starving. So, speaking of eating and dieting and whatnot, I am way past my dinner time.
I need to eat. And Andy made mac and cheese, so I can't eat that. So I'm gonna have to maybe get a pizza now that you have me in the mood for pizza.
Pizza is the magical fruit of the sea.
There's some good gluten-free pizza down here. Just saying.
Hey, I will have to take your word on that.
Like